Looking at this landscape, you see a rich environment with immense agricultural capacity. The soil is fertile and the climate is highly favorable for farming. Yet between 2020 and 2023, the rural population in Serbia dropped by 1.17%. A significant driver of this decline occurs at age 14. Students leave their villages to attend high school in larger towns, and the vast majority do not return. This chart highlights a severe structural disadvantage. Agriculture generates 10% of Serbia's GDP and a full 20% of its exports. However, 99.6% of the farms driving that output are family-owned, averaging exactly 6.4 hectares. That is roughly a third of the European Union average of 17.4 hectares. Because these individual plots are entirely detached from scale, farmers lack the leverage to process what they grow. As a result, Serbia exports 4.7 billion euros worth of agricultural goods, primarily as raw, bulk grains and frozen raspberries, leaving the profit margin of processing to other countries. Exporting raw materials at high volumes while simultaneously losing the youngest generation guarantees rural extinction. To survive, the baseline agricultural model has to shift away from bulk volume and focus entirely on capturing value locally. This is an industrial greenhouse complex in the Netherlands. From a tiny landmass, the Dutch model generates a staggering 137.5 billion euros in agricultural exports. Serbia cannot duplicate this. The Dutch approach relies on immense capital consolidation, ultra-high-tech infrastructure, and massive centralization. But Serbia can copy the underlying economic principle, extracting high value per hectare, per person, and per community. Instead of doing this through massive centralization, it can be achieved through radical localization. A thriving rural economy requires specific, overlapping conditions. You cannot buy a village ecosystem outright with a single massive grant. It has to be built layer by layer, solving physical, economic, and social deficits at the exact same time. Layer 1 is basic infrastructure. Currently, Serbia irrigates less than 2% of its arable land. Allocating European rural development funds to buy farmers brand new tractors yields very little if the crops underneath those tractors fail from drought. Securing reliable water lines and paving farm-to-market roads are absolute prerequisites. They must happen before any advanced technological upgrades are introduced. Layer 2 requires a shift in processing. Instead of subsidizing giant, centralized factories hours away, 51.8 million euros of rural funding can be pivoted to build 200 microhubs scattered directly across the countryside. This map demonstrates how a microhub functions. It acts as a shared processing center, like a community dairy or a cooperative mill. It serves up to 30 boutique farms, and strictly within a 30-kilometer radius, keeping transportation costs low and wealth localized. We know this works because it is already happening at the Gračanica Monastery. By operating a shared local mill, the monastery provided a stable, guaranteed market for surrounding farmers. Knowing they had a reliable place to process and sell their feed, local farmers tripled their livestock flocks. A local food hub absorbs the massive overhead costs that crush small farms. It transitions individuals from isolated producers of raw materials into protected partners in a high-value supply chain. Layer 3 secures the generational pipeline. Waiting until a teenager reaches vocational school to teach them agriculture is too late. They have already moved to the city. Food business skills have to be introduced starting in the 4th grade. This does not mean adding new classes to an already busy schedule. It means teaching existing math and art requirements through the lens of local agriculture. Students learn arithmetic by calculating product prices and study design by creating food labels. Layer 4 bridges education and employment. During the pandemic, remote learning frequently failed due to poor rural internet. Today, Serbia's Connected Schools initiative has installed broadband in thousands of classrooms, providing a massive, underutilized digital network. The solution is to link online learning directly to the physical microhubs. When a high school student completes an online certification in food safety or digital marketing, it triggers a guaranteed 3-month paid internship at their village's processing hub, overseen by local cooperative mentors. By pairing early practical education with digitally supported, guaranteed internships, the village creates a closed-loop system. Youth are trained exactly for the high-value jobs waiting right down the street. Layer 5 addresses the human element. Launching an agricultural business carries intense personal risk. People need a neutral, shared physical space to collaborate, pool resources, and build community trust. An initiative called Zajedno na Selu, Together in the Village, can provide this space. Many depopulated villages still have intact empty church halls, parish offices, and mosques. These existing buildings can be utilized as free, interreligious rural centers. To operate in these spaces, cooperative boards must follow a strict governance rule. Leadership must include youth between the ages of 18 and 30, and in mixed regions, representatives from multiple faiths. State funds can purchase processing equipment and internet routers, but only active, interreligious, youth-inclusive spaces can generate the social capital required to sustain a local economy over the long term. The blueprint requires immediate execution. By 2026, the government, religious leaders, and the private sector should draft a joint memorandum to pilot 50 interreligious food hubs tied directly to 50 local schools. This chart represents a shift in measuring success. We must stop tracking euros spent on equipment and start tracking demographic retention. A joint committee will monitor employment and school engagement. The ultimate indicator is a 5% increase in 22-year-olds staying in their home municipalities. Subsidies and raw exports will not save Serbia's villages. A rural revival requires living wages, schools teaching relevant skills, and a community framework where neighbors take active responsibility for one another. That is Sabornos in action.